In the last video, we focused on the starting point of human civilizations in the world of Path of Exile. That part of the story concerns the rise and fall of the Titans and the Protocol. Unlike games that rely on ad hoc world building or just use it as merely filler, Path of Exile boasts a geopolitical construction that, to be honest, left me quite impressed when I decided to delve deeper into its lore. The world of Rayclass feels alive. Diverse ethnicities and kingdoms coexist, each with their own events and historical milestones. It's reminiscent of Middle-earth in Tolkien's universe. Within the same time frame, you have countless parallel stories unfolding, creating a world that truly feels alive. I think this has always been one of the strongest aspects of the Lord of the Rings universe. You noticed in moments like when Merry and Pippin are in Isengard with the Ents, Frodo and Sam are journeying toward Mordor, while the other characters are fighting at Helm's Deep. This is so integral to Tolkien's world building that even became a gameplay mechanic in The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King on PS2, remember? You had 3 separate storylines to follow, and in the end, they all converged in the events leading to the trilogy's climax. For these reasons, I believe it wouldn't be impossible, but it would be extremely counterproductive to adopt a strictly chronological approach to exploring the game's lore. We'll move back and forth through time in the upcoming videos, carefully exploring the trajectory of each civilization. My current plan is to focus on the world building of Path of Exile, leaving each of these factions at the point where we encounter them in the game's campaign. This way, we can avoid too much repetition when we reach the stage of this series where we'll cover each act. And oh boy, we've got a long road ahead, don't we? So let's get to it. The Factions of PoE. Let's dive into the different factions of Rayclass. These factions are the Asmari, the Vol, the Azomites, the Maraketh, the Faridum, the Karui, and the Kalgur. How fascinating this anthropological variety is in the world of Path of Exile. It's a theme that has even been the focus of game leagues more than once. Take the Legion expansion for instance. It beautifully captured the clash of different peoples through its mechanics. Now I know that my viewers are people of the highest intellectual caliber, and you, just by reading the title of this video, probably already know who we'll be talking about today. Without further ado, let's dive into today's main topic with an overview of this fascinating society. Then we'll pick where we left off, the rise of the Lightless in the winter of the world. The Maraketh. The Maraketh are one of the oldest peoples of Rayclass. I believe this was implied in our video about the Titans in the Protocol. After all, during that era, at the dawn of the winter of the world, the existence of the Maraketh was already known. You see, Akali made an alliance with the Nakara. If you are a little confused, that is understandable. After all, what the hell is an Nakara or a Sakhama? Fortunately for you, my dear viewer, you have access to the transcendent storytelling power of the Lore Weaver. Here's the thing, the Maraketh are a semi-nomadic faction with ascetic traditions and a matriarchal structure with their own native language, the Marak. Despite their anthropological, cultural, and ethnic similarities, we're not talking about a centralized power. The Maraketh are composed of various tribes, the Akara, each governed by a female leader called the Sakhama. The Maraketh inhabit a region that became known as the Vastiri Plains.
It is an elegant lie, that name. The Plains of Vastiri.
Oh, Nanette, you show up out of nowhere to call me a liar. Do you have anything to say about this region?
I know it only as a harsh desert, a blasted wasteland of broken rock, crimson sands, and salted earth. Those who call it the Plains see it as it was thousands of years ago. They are deluded. But who am I to judge? I still believe I'll find a home someday, even with a face like mine. Perhaps we all need a few delusions to keep us sane. What's your flavor of madness, Exile?
Oh, my flavor of madness? Oh, it's believing that someone out there is watching this video, nodding along, perhaps even having a good time, and still not clicking those subscribe and like buttons. Now that's delusional. Excuse me? So, folks, it seems we have another guest here. This is Kahutoroa, a former chieftain of the Karui tribe Hongokurai, and an NPC we encounter in the Trial of the Ancestors expansion. He's an ancient warrior who now resides in the Hall of the Dead, having lived long ago during the time of the Vaal Empire, before they all met their demise.
Oh, the Vaal are dead. All of them? It was such a massive empire in my time. It's unsettling. Well, at least our friends the Asmeri can move on down from the mountains now and set up an empire of their own.
Well, for a warrior, you've made quite a decent political read of the situation. The Asmeri, after the first cataclysm, did found the Eternal Empire. They thrived for a long time, but not forever.
Oh, the Asmeri did set up an empire. And they died too? What's going on up there? I suppose that golden cult they banished to Oriath is going to take over the world now.
They sure did, until Kitava wiped out most of them.
Oriath did become a dominant power, and then it got destroyed too? Rayclast is a disaster. Who's even left? The Maraketh? At the very least, the lush rivers and forests of that verdant region will still carry on some form of beauty in Rayclast.
You mean the Vastiri Desert?
Vastiri Desert? The rivers and the forests are gone? Everything I knew has been erased by time. Everyone I mention turns out they're dead. I should just stop asking, but I have to know. The Azomites.
Oh, no. We're not bringing the Azomites into this. Or are we? Well, no. At least not in this video. So hey, Kahutoroa, why don't you tell him to go do something elsewhere? Today, the Vastiri Plains have turned into a vast desert. Because of this, the Maraketh people had to adopt a nomadic way of life. This is evident both in Adia's dialogue about her Aghara and in the Path of Exile 2 trailer, where we find ourselves as part of a Maraketh caravan. Despite this, it is considered that they have a capital, located in the northern part of the Vastiri region. I mentioned this in the last video. We come into contact with the Maraketh people at various points in the Path of Exile 1 campaign, most notably in Highgate, a settlement occupied by the Maraketh and led by Sekhema Oyun. Other notable characters from this faction that deserve a mention are Tazuni, Pitarus and Vanja, Kira, Irasha, Adia and Nashta, and the Sekhemas, Solaray and Landara. At this point, let's divide the video into specific topics we can cover about the Maraketh. These are structure and general organization and historical trajectory. So let's get into it. Structure and organization. As we've seen before, the Maraketh are divided into Agharas. Their origins go back to incredibly ancient times. It's impossible to estimate exactly when they emerged, but we know that by the time of the Protovol's fall, the Maraketh were already settled in the Vastiri region. In the distant past, when the green and flourishing fields of Vastiri had not yet turned to desert, they were known just as the Keth, a simple ornament from the days when the Keth's trade empire was the glory of the world. Protectors at the massive toll gates wore these. We're talking here about a matriarchal society where each tribe is led by a woman that holds the title of Sekhema. Throughout the game, we come across several of them, like Oyun in Highgate, Deshret, Alcuna, an enemy of the Legion League, Solaray and Landara, and Irasha? They follow a strict cultural framework. They are deeply attached to their beliefs, and we can observe conflicting power dynamics among those who wish to preserve the traditions, like Yushara, and those advocating for radical change, like Tazuni. We have accounts of various Maraketh ritualistic practices. Irasha mentions the ritual of womanhood. While it's unclear if all women undergo this process, it seems implied that it's reserved for those aspiring to become warriors, known as Dekhara.
When I received my first flower of blood, I was given to the ritual of womanhood. All young Maraketh women have to dance with the scorpion to prove themselves worthy of carrying the Dekhara's spear.
She lost her twin sister during this ritual. Irasha is a character who represents the perspective of the Maraketh people who, even in a reactionary way, strive to adhere to the deeply rooted traditions passed down through generations. The same dialogue we referenced during the quest to kill the goddess Shakari, the mother of scorpions, Irasha expresses clear resentment toward the insectoid figure, mourning all the little girls who suffered and died from the scorpion's venom. That same concern does not seem to apply to men. On multiple occasions, it becomes apparent that tradition has been shaped by a fear of the dangers associated with masculine traits. Notice the nuance. On one hand, Irasha praises the feminine qualities, the protective and nurturing role of mothers, the origin of life from a woman's womb. On the other hand, Kira highlights the problem of men, pride. This pride, according to tradition, is beaten out of boys, a necessary evil, to prevent that same pride from growing unchecked, like a plague. Another tradition worth mentioning is the ritual of coronation. And how shall we know a Sakhema worthy of rule? By the anointing of the great hawk, under whose wings we grow and soar. The roc is a mythical bird, popular in Arab and Persian mythology. By now, it's probably clear that the Maraketh people are heavily inspired by these Middle Eastern cultures, evoking themes of desert and arid landscapes. The Sakhema feather is likely a reference to this mythical creature, and perhaps we're dealing with a roc's feather. In the game, we never actually see a roc. It's said that the Maraketh typically ride roas. Remember them? Those giant chickens we first encounter in the mudflats during Act 1. Despite this, legend has it that Garukhan, one of the ancient gods, once rode a roc into battle, or at least that's what's recorded in the game's lore compilation, but I wasn't able to pinpoint the exact source of this claim. Apparently, the Maraketh have a tradition of burying their dead in the sky. This is hinted at both in Sin's dialogue and in the flavor text of the Urn of Faerûd, which also explains that the Faridun, we will talk about them, are forbidden from being buried, according to this tradition. There is no explicit explanation of what a sky burial entails. It could mean that it could be similar to the practices of the Karui, who feed their dead to birds, or maybe that they are burying their dead in high places, though they mainly live in the desert. The final point I have here about the Maraketh traditions is the disdain for tattooed individuals. To them, markings on the skin signify that the person has committed something shameful or criminal. The Maraketh gods. Garukhan, Queen of the Wind. Garukhan is the goddess of wind and sky. Her story symbolizes the downfall of an individual due to ambition and pride. Her tale is closely tied to Sin's, as they were companions. From their union came Shakari. Yep, this thing is the child of these two. Speaking of which, I never realized before that Garukhan, whom we fight in Act 9 during the quest The Ruler of Highgate, has a few extra arms. At least her daughter takes after her in that regard. There's a good amount of lore in the Forbidden Sanctum, in the relics related to Lisha, the heretic, which explains how Garukhan and Sin met. I want to dedicate a separate video specifically to the story of Sin and innocence, so let's keep moving forward for now. As a traveler, she encountered Sin, who had been chained to a cliff by Innocence and his followers, where he was being mocked and derided by the crowd gathered around him. In a single blow, she cracked the mountainside, freeing him. After weeks of being pursued, she made a stand in a sandstorm. Innocence was wounded, and the pair made their escape. She and Sin became lovers, and she soon married him. However, her vanity, pride, and above all else, ambition, pulled her away. Before their eventual separation, Sin says that he planted the Dark Ember in Highgate because of Garukhan. Garukhan sought knowledge in the skies. It's said that eldritch secrets were divulged onto her. So, as winds erode the sandstone, Garukhan herself slowly lost her mind and descended into madness. Like all gods who decayed, Garukhan was no different. Eventually, madness consumed her, and that is the Garukhan we encounter in Act 9, a mere hollow shell of who she once was. A prideful and powerful figure who once inspired mortals, like young Irasha, back when she was just a child. She was a beloved mother, a cherished wife. Well, at least until they divorced. Are you thinking that mortal marriages are hard? Try an immortal one. Oh, and those are Sin's words, not mine. Just saying, in case my wife ever watches this someday. Shakari, the Queen of the Sands. Shakari is the daughter of Sin and Garukhan. She is the goddess of sands and the black Maraketh scorpions that rise from it. She resides in the Oasis, deep within the Vastiri desert, concealed by a swirling blizzard of golden sand. To confront her, we wield the power of the Stormblade through the bottled storm. After we defeat Shakari, Irasha seems relieved that her sister's death in the ritual of womanhood was avenged. Even though it's just an optional quest, it seems that we saved the world again? Well, that's good, because imagine the nightmare of a scorpion-driven apocalypse. the goddess of water. There is also a less known god of the Maraketh pantheon, the goddess of water. There is information about her in the heist items flavor text. And that's basically it. What? Were you hoping that the people of the desert would be praising a water goddess? Come on, man. No wonder she's forgotten. The Maraketh Timeline. Okay, so we still have quite the story to uncover on these guys. Girls. The first meaningful event on the Maraketh would be, of course, the Winter of the World, an event we discussed thoroughly in my last video. Please check it out. You will love it. I promise. The Winter of the World had consequences for most factions in Rayclast. It was known by the Azomites as the Great Fire. It made the Asmari create the Viridian Woods from the Affliction League. Concerning the Maraketh, we know that Akali, the Clay Shaper, one of the few survivors of the primeval civilization, eventually joined forces with an Akara and founded the Order of the Jinn a long time past as the war waged on. This alliance wasn't an option, it was a necessity, as Maraketh are usually wary of outsiders. Much time passed, and after Akali was long gone, a last gilded scarab was left upon her ancient grave as a token of admiration for her feats in life. As the hordes of bone and blood and foul magic surge across the Vastiri plains, the scant survivors of our Ikara agree to your alliance, ash-scared Akali. The disorder means death, order may mean life. Your golems and your leadership have slowed the tide of death, Clay Shaper. The relics of power you bid us find have kept the Vastiri plains from the brink of oblivion. The defenses of the Maraketh will hold. The Winter of the World has ended at the hands of the Three Sisters. We laid this scarab upon your ancient grave in thanks for your efforts, honored founder. As you hoped, the fate of her people will never befall another. Who are the Three Sisters, you ask? Well, they are probably referring to the three aspects of the Dryocht, which we know as Solaris, Lunaris, and Viridis. Unfortunately, this is a topic for another video. When we talk about the Asmari, this information is actually very important, because it indicates that whoever left the gilded scarab in Akali's grave could be also Asmari, as this person could be talking about the deities of the Asmari pantheon. In Heist, we've given indications that these entities also have origins tied to the Maraketh. The items, Seal of Lunaris, Seal of Solaris, and the Spear of Solari are part of a questline involving the Crimson Scribe, who sought to uncover the truth behind the Winter of the World. When we examine these items, we notice that there is a Maraketh counterpart for these goddesses. According to the Spear of Solari, they were Saghamas, twin sisters, who united the Maraketh. This shows us how different cultures worshipped the same entities, but under different names. Solari to the Maraketh, Solaris to the Eternal Empire, and Morrigan to the Ancient Asmari. Landara to the Maraketh, Lunaris to the Eternal Empire, and Katha to the Ancient Asmari. But what about the third aspect? After all, there are three sisters, right? I'd love to dive deeper into this topic, but for now, I'll leave you with a little teaser. Viridis in the Eternal Empire, Maka to the Ancient Asmari, and why not the Forgotten Goddess of Water for the Maraketh? Well, that's all for now, but don't be sad. We still have a lot to talk about when it comes to our friends from the desert. This video is already getting a bit too long, and I want you to enjoy Path of Exile lore in a pleasant, digestible dose. So stay tuned for upcoming updates to the channel, as the fourth chapter in this series will also be about the Maraketh. In the second part, we'll explore the Maraketh role in the Purity Rebellion, the story of Dashret, and the sealing of the mines in Highgate, the Maraketh weapons, the Faridun, the Order of the Jinn, the Maraketh now and their role in PoE 2, and much more in the Ultimate PoE lore series from the Lore Weaver channel. And as always, thanks for watching.